Rain came and wind blew. My house was built on you. I'm safe. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. Hey, do it again. Rain came, wind blew. My house was built on you. I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through. I'm gonna make it through. I'm gonna make it through. Cause my house was built on you. One more time, say, I'm gonna make it through. Cause my house was built on you.
Hey y'all, I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kevin.
Hey, welcome to Hope Ignited today. We are so excited to be welcomed in the studio by two of our very favorites. The Freemans are back joining us today. You guys remember the Freemans from episode 307 back in May of 2025. They've got an important and powerful message to deliver today. Hey, as a quick reminder, let me tell you a little bit about David and Mechelle. David is a health and fitness professional that's been in the health and fitness industry for over 20 years. He's the North America Senior Director of Signature Coach Excellence and co-host on the award-winning podcast Lifetime Talks. Help us welcome David to the studio.
Thank you.
His beautiful bride, Mechelle, is a two-time Olympic gold-winning coach at the 2024 Paris Games in 2008. She also is currently the founder of Track Girls, a nonprofit organization that supports girls' mental, physical, and social development through track and field empowerment programs. Help us welcome Mechelle back to the studio, guys.
All right. Welcome back, Freemans.
We love you guys.
Good to be back.
We love you.
Yeah.
What an honor to be able to read bios that powerful. You guys are insane. You know, I want to just start by saying that episode that we had an opportunity to tell a little bit more about you guys was one of the highest viewed episodes we've ever done. And that's a true testament to the type of people that you guys are,
That's awesome.
as is the experience we're going to share today. So thank you for being with us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so what brought us here today is you had a very powerful experience in your lives. I can just tell when you walked in the studio, I can tell you have a different look about you. Like you really encountered God in the storm. And we want to talk specifically about Hurricane Melissa. On October 28th, the Cat 5 storm, Hurricane Melissa, it was the strongest hurricane ever recorded to strike Jamaica, hit. Some stats about this. I love telling weather stats. It's kind of fun, right? Melissa peaked with sustained. And by the way, shout out to all the Melissas out there. I knew a
They're
Katrina.
the new Karen. New Karen.
Yeah, it's rough out there for the Melissas.
Yeah.
I knew a Katrina right after Katrina happened, and I said, is this rough right now? And she just looked like she'd gone through the ringer. You know, she's like, oh my gosh,
Shout out
everyone
to
hates me
Melissas.
now. Everyone hates me. But Melissa peaked with sustained winds of 185 miles an hour, sustained winds. What really made the storm bad was that it was so slow. It hung out at 4.5 miles an hour and really just stayed there for a while.
Yeah.
It struck near New Hope on Jamaica's southern coast on the 28th, and it eventually moved out, of course, and then it ended up hitting Cuba as well, which is really awful. Total devastation reported in areas like Black River and Manchester. Infrastructure disruption, more than 500,000 people lost power.
Think about that.
500,000.
500,000 people.
Awful. And this pertains to you guys. About 25,000 tourists remained in Jamaica during the storm because of how difficult it was to get out, obviously. And then very tragically, at least 19 fatalities and probably more were confirmed. And over 168,000 people had been evacuated. experts predict that it's going to be months and probably years, realistically, of rebuilding with massive economic losses, billions in agriculture, tourism, and infrastructure damage. Tourism is the lifeblood around there, and a lot of people love going to Jamaica, and this is going to be a difficult for them. Yeah. And I think I remember going to Maui a couple years ago, and it was maybe a year ago. It was right after the terrible fires that had happened about a year out. It was actually a 1-year anniversary of the fires that had swept through Maui, and it was still bad. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was literally like burned down husks of buildings and little villages and stuff that weren't going to be rebuilt.
It's no different than Katrina. Yeah. I mean, this was our 20-year anniversary, and there are still entire communities and districts that have never been rebuilt.
Because sometimes it just doesn't make sense to rebuild, right? Maybe it's an older community, and it's like there's no new economic investment. It hadn't had time for that. There's a lot to this. We'll get into this, but the main thing we wanted to talk to you guys about, you were there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have eyewitnesses that went through this storm, and we just thought this would be a really interesting episode to talk to our friends, the Freemans, and then we want you to stick around later. Towards the end, you're going to hear how you could help in this situation. I know people feel so powerless when they're watching their even strangers, but especially friends and family and people that are impacted.
We are all facing a storm of some sort, right? Mm-hmm. And we are here to ignite hope. And so that's why we felt like it was so important to tell this story. And again, I just want to start by saying thank you guys for being willing. You are just back in town from this. This is very fresh. But let's start with maybe what brought you to Jamaica.
Well, we thought we were going on a staff retreat with +1, with David joining us. It was about a group of 19 of us that was going. We were going to be there for a 3-day short experience. The night before we left, one of my colleagues did mention Hurricane Melissa. And so our travel lead touched base with the resort, who gave us the green light for us to still travel. Looking back, I'm like, So we got the thumbs up to still come in, and that's what we did. And so on Thursday evening, we landed. Friday, we started hearing rumblings more about Hurricane Melissa.
What date was that?
So we came in on Thursday the 26th, so Friday that 27th. 2 days before. Yeah, 2 days before. At that point, she was south of us, and didn't know if she was going to turn north to, in fact, hit land.
That's what people don't realize. I just think it's important for people that are listening or watching, because people are always like, why didn't you go? Why didn't you just leave? And it's like literally the greatest meteorologist in the entire world cannot project or predict the trajectory of a storm like that. It's impossible.
It could like swerve off, and then you just cancel your trip for nothing.
Yeah, it just was unfortunate that when they did predict that path, we were already there. And so now you're talking about, she intensified from a category 1 to a 5 in 24 hours. On Friday to Saturday, we started hearing more about the possibility of her turning north to hit land. So now you're talking about trying to get out.
So this is the day before.
So now we're on Saturday, and flights are canceled. But Friday evening, you started hearing a little bit. So one of our my coworkers actually changed their flight and got out on Saturday. So now you're starting to be like,
Did that person seem at the time like a little bit of a panicking person? Did you kind of in the back of your go, you're panicking?
Well,
you're being too safe.
Overboard.
Well, we are like high competitors, and you're going to push your limits of like, we can do this. It's not that we can stand this. But she's an elite coach and an elite athlete herself, so her risk assessment was high enough for her to leave.
It was a risk assessment.
And the information she took in, her sense of urgency was what we should have actually all followed.
Right.
Well, but that's easy to say in hindsight.
And your kids aren't with you on this trip.
No.
So is that in the back of your head?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of those things were running through our mind. We obviously, face value, was still calm within the storm, no pun intended within that, but just knowing where the storm was at when we got our flight canceled. It was so far still in the ocean, and our flight was 1:00 on Sunday. So all flights prior to 12 o'clock got out, and then they closed the airport on Sunday at noon, and it did not hit until Tuesday at like 3. So that's where people were like, well, why didn't you get down? I'm like, oh, trust. We thought we were getting out, and then that happened. So that's what changed.
Is the resort like, we're going to bonus you a few nights here because you're trapped?
Well, they do have a distress rate.
Praise the Lord.
Well, I don't know how much of a distress rate it was, but it was $150 per person per night.
Okay.
But I want to say that the people on the resort, the staff, so amazing. Like the way they had that don't worry mentality, like in Jamaica.
Oh, yeah.
It was really, they were still smiling. They were still just helping out and supporting, knowing that their families are about to be affected as well.
Yeah.
So I do want to shout out like all the people who are working at the resort. You would not know that a Category 5 hurricane was coming.
Oh, God
But
bless
I wanted us to know. I mean, I was going back and forth, like, okay, at what point? But, then on Monday, they sent out that mandatory evacuation for all residents to leave their rooms. And see, that happened when our son texted us the path change. So initially, her path was coming into Jamaica farther east. And so we were west, Montego Bay area. And all of a sudden she went farther west in the water before she turned north, which put us on the direct path on her way out. So we're on the north shores of her exiting. And so she was going to exit right on out of our beach. We found out very quickly.
What what I remember seeing on like the Today, like NBC, CBS, like AB, like all these big outlets here, they were saying at this point, people that are in Jamaica are choosing what coast to go to have the greatest chance of survival. It wasn't how do you avoid it. It was where do you get the least amount of potential devastation or increase your survival rate. And that was just to like bring it back here. So we knew that you guys were there at that point. And that's when we're like how do we pray for you? What do we do? How do we help? And I just remember the email communications were, as long as we have power, we will communicate with you guys that we are alive and that we are well. And then it was just, we were sitting ducks. That was insane.
We had no communication after she hit for 3 days. No internet, no cell.
What was the moment for each of you individually when you got concerned? Like, oh no.
Well, when our son, once again, sending us, hey, you're in the direct path. And Shell can tell you, I kept on saying, oh, she's going to shift. We're going to be fine. And I keep updating it. If it shifts a little bit to the east, a little bit to the west. And then she just comes over about 10 minutes later and she's like, it's going directly through us.
Yeah.
I'm like, still in that moment, it's going to shift.
Yeah, and I'm like, no. And it's so, at that part, it gets a little eerie. My mom worked for FEMA. She retired with the government for over 30 years. And so we had a conversation, and when the path changed, and I knew we were a direct hit, and she knew we were a direct hit, but we didn't say it on the phone. We talked about this after we got home, because that was a moment where we realized that, it got a little bit more serious than we wanted it to be.
In that moment, though, I was going to say, because her and her mom were on the phone, her mom was bawling. Oh. And I had to grab the phone because I know that obviously the emotions were running high. And then that's where I just brought it up. I said, hey, trust me when I say we're covered, we're going to be fine. In the back of my head is still the unknown.
Yeah.
But the reality is being the voice of reasoning in that moment versus everybody else is already panicking, like creating that foundation of like, we're going to be good.
Faith.
Yeah. And it came back full circle. I sent her the message, the same thing that we shared to the kids each and every morning. We were talking about firm foundation, and she listened to that song and she knows the words. But then when that chorus came in, as far as rain came, wind blew, my house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I know we're going to make it through. We've been saying it all these years prior to the storm coming. Yeah. So it was so fitting in the moment of like, you talk about
faith. That took life right then,
but now when you're faced
different.
with it, it's different.
We were able to use it as a real tool because we use it every single day.
Yeah.
Because like when in our life, we're not really worried about rain and wind. I mean, back hundreds of years ago, that could kill you. Exposure in the elements, people, when they didn't have structure and that kind of thing. I'm curious about so timeline-wise, when did you start to see the weather changing, and where were you?
Yeah.
What was your hunker down situation?
Yeah, where do you go?
Yeah, so Monday evening before she hit, that was the mandatory evacuation. And so we left our rooms and went into the convention center where they boarded the windows around, and they set up beach lawn chairs out for us to sleep on, and they put those in conference rooms. So imagine 80 of those lawn chairs, in each of the conference rooms, and we had 600 guests.
Snoring and
all of the things.
Gosh,
we have a whole story on snoring.
Noise you can imagine.
One of my colleagues had actual CPAC, so at least he wasn't snoring, but it was some who, But that was the least of the least, which is the funny part. You think that is, but then you lay down, you're like.
Yeah.
But so we're in a real public environment in that moment of our shelter. Some guests, unfortunately, had to even sleep in their theater. So they were in chairs. We were in there first.
Unpack that. When we're now coming from a room, so you get a phone call, supposed to get a phone call. Then you get a knock on the door. Then you get escorted to the convention center where the shelter was.
Do you have all your belongings at that point?
Nope.
Only essentials,
only essentials.
Yeah, pillow, blanket, and a small, carry-on
maybe
tote
2 change
bag.
of clothes or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, prior to this, as she said, we're highly competitive. We're always being proactive. So we walk the space. I'm like, hey, we're going to go walk this space.
Yeah.
We're going to understand how we transition from X, Y, and Z, connecting with the staff to understand how the flow is going to work. And rest assured, like, hey, we know your group. We know you're Nike Elite, which, by the way, status doesn't matter when the storm's coming. I'm going to tell you that.
It's the ultimate equalizer, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now when we get there, we got our whole group. We said, if one of us get called, all of us come together so we can stay as a group. Mm-hmm. So now we're there. We're in front of the convention center. You start to understand that the weather's starting to shift, but still no chaos yet. But it was then that they were saying, okay, group 14. And then they take us away from the whole path that we walked the day before. And then emotions start to go high because we're about to be in the movie theater. Still grateful that we have a place for shelter, but we also understand this is low area, so we understand how hurricanes work and floods.
Yeah.
So we're just like, this is probably not the smartest, and it's only one exit. Yes, grateful that we're boarded up and we're in shelter, but we understand we're at a low level.
Right.
We're still understanding the situation. And one of our partners, his
Dawn
name's
Hopper
Alonzo.
Nelson, she's an Olympic gold medalist, and we are around people who are like thinking survival of the fittest.
Right?
We're like Hunger Games mentality with our group. But her husband, is like, no, we're not settling for this. And David and him had walked the area the night before, so he went in a back way, found a way up, and was like, it's some lawn chairs left. So the VIP area, in a sense, that you're thinking. That you can at least lay flat for the next. We stayed there for 2 nights, So, but by the grace of God, he said he was led by the Holy Spirit to find the back stairs and get us upstairs. And we got 14 bids for the 14 of us that were together.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
Those spaces, for everybody to understand, priority went to elderly and with families.
Yeah.
So for him to find the spot, remember she was just saying is like 80 within every room. So we had 600 people total, so that top floor catered to roughly around 320 people. So when he went up there and saw all those vacant spots, he was like taking off pieces of clothing to kind of like hone that down. But then we got up there and luckily we were able to be at a higher level.
Wow. I would have been like, man, I'm so old. I know I look like I'm like
we had an 80-year-old. Our founder was with us with the nonprofit that I work with now. And so he was 80 years old. We had the CPAC, a CPAP collie. That was women and children.
Put him in a wheelchair with the CPAP on and wheel him like you do that. You do like when you're boarding, if you want to board early on an airplane. I'm not saying I've ever done that. My dad and I had a whole scam going back in the day.
Now we know what Kevin does at Six Flags.
Oh my God.
No.
I mean, that's two nights there, and then by the time we go to sleep on Monday night and wake up Tuesday, now that's when she's prepared to take land. So she finally enters, and so you're waiting. I don't want to say finally, but I mean you're watching her. She's moving so slowly, and she's now at this point hitting metrics that everyone is amazed and it's historical. And I'm like, this is great and all. Or the eye is so serene and quiet, and it's so powerful, but it's actually hitting us. So
did you? I mean, like. describe the senses of the thing. Did
Yeah.
you hear it?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
did you
How you
see?
feel.
You obviously can't look.
Yeah.
You're not
Feel
right
it.
by a
She
window.
finally hit, I
Yeah.
want to say, I'll let you tell the story because I was watching him in this moment. And so as she hits land, it takes her about 2 to 3 hours to finally get to us because, again, she's exiting from our shores. And so about 20 minutes before, you could start to feel the intensity of the winds picking up. And then I look to my left and I see Davis in like this super zoned in mode. So I'll just let him talk you through that.
Yeah, once again, being proactive, like understanding they had like the Blue Mountains, like what's going to disrupt the eye, what's going to break it up from a category 5 to maybe a 4 or 3 before it hits us. I'm thinking of all the things that can lessen the blow of what's about to happen. And when she finally hits us, we get the eastern wall, which is the worst part to get hit by outside of obviously being in the eye. And when it hits us, it's now roughly around 9 miles per hour versus when it was in the ocean, 3 to 5. And it hits and you feel the pressure within the room, like everything, it just
You could feel the pressure change.
You feel the pressure.
You
Like
could
your
feel
ears
the
and
force,
stuff?
like the
like
force of her.
how you get up in the
Yeah.
air as far as flying, and you can feel like the ears pop. Like you feel the pressure within the room. Then the sound. Everything that you hear or see, talk about in movies, like it sounds like a freight train or this howling sound. Oh yeah, it's real and it's so vivid. And when you're now hearing all the different noises going on within the room, whether it's babies crying, people, whatever it is.
The solar panels getting ripped
off.
off. You could hear the crashing of glass.
Oh no!
Yeah.
And are you looking at the ceiling and just
Like,
thinking
don't
any
pop
second
off.
it's going to get?
Don't pop off.
I was
Yes.
thinking, don't pop off.
But you do have this sense of calmness and awe of the power of
for
God.
sure.
It's like
For
yeah.
sure.
So that's why I think fear and faith are so close within that line.
Oh, sure. That's when you need God gets real.
That's when it gets so real. So once that Shell was not Miss Optimistic, once it's over, you don't hear the howling anymore. You don't feel the pressure anymore. She's on her soapbox and she's saying, "We're in the eye. We're in the eye." It's so calm. I'm like, no, the eye was, west of us.
Yeah.
We're good. And she was like, "No, we're in the eye."
Well, I didn't know. I was like, she's not gone. She's not done yet.
Halfway there.
Yeah, no,
Halfway
I
It
there.
know.
really is like half glass full,
You
half
know,
glass
I don't
empty,
know,
right?
Well, because I don't think
yeah.
people are y'all still, you don't have the ability to be like looking at the
we still-
Doppler radar.
You're able to see everything. Like,
At this point, we didn't lose the.
didn't lose
So
nothing
you
yet.
still
Yeah,
knew
still
where
have
you
it.
were in the
So,
storm.
like, she's here.
Praise the Lord for
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay.
So now, once it's passed, and we have the disaster relief guy. His name was Steve. He was amazing, by the way.
Shout out to Steve.
Yeah, Steve literally breaks it down to us. He said, "No, if we would have got hit directly by the eye, it would have created so much pressure within the way the convention center was boarded. Roof would have popped off. It would have been a pressure cooker." And he's saying the front part, obviously, of the hurricane, the eye, and then that second portion of the hurricane, it would have created so much pressure from that initial blow, roof popped off. And he's saying they did, like the Jamaican resort and all the workers, they did the best they could for 600 people being on a resort, boarding it up in the convention center and Showtime movie theater. You were in the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that area up
Everyone
where we're
survived.
yeah, everybody survived, but it's rural.
Yeah.
The infrastructure in North, West Jamaica is different from Kingston.
Yeah.
Right? So it was just so much of a rural area. It obviously was devastated
Yeah,
by
I mean,
the storm.
all the vegetation,
Gone.
destruction. I mean, it was just green. But before when we looked out our balconies and see the mountains, it's green. It was brown and bare. Every leaf, every petal, every palm just took with her. Just devastation.
When you walked out, like how long after that moment when you're like, it's the eye, and you're kind of having that discussion and you realize it's fine, how long after until you're able to go out?
Yeah. So that evening when she leaves, like that full presence, she still you have the aftermath. So
Like
it's like a
rain.
tropical storm now that we're experiencing. So we couldn't go to our room because we're like, okay, she's gone. Can we go back now? Or they're like, no, it was another night.
So you had to stay there.
So we had to
and
stay
then-
another night. So the next morning they allow us to go check. They went and did an initial assessment, but you have to go get your things. If you have the damage, you either come and get into another reassigned, or you're able to stay in your same room. So we got to walk out that next morning. So you're thinking about 9 a.m. ish that we're finally seeing like what was left behind. And our balcony was totally swiped off. Like all all the glass on our balcony.
Fifth floor.
On the 5th floor, was totally wiped off when we got back, and it was water in our walls. So we definitely had to be reassigned. But I can't imagine being in the actual room for that experience.
Terrifying.
That saved lives for us to have to bunker down.
Your family. Okay, so at this point now, it's over. How long were you radio silent from everyone, communication-wise?
Too long.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this might sound funny, but I do well with no technology, like that isolation away from technology, but communication, obviously, to let everybody know that we're good. So Steve, shout out to Steve again, he brought Starlink, and that was allowing so many people to connect with their families. And we heard of Starlink, but now when it's applicable of how to use Starlink, it was a game changer.
I mean, but that was like 20 minutes a day. Like he'll come in the morning and like, here's my hotspot, and then you're like joining the hotspot, like and then he'll do that again in the evening. So that happened from Tuesday when she left, like that main experience. She took the cell and internet with her in that moment. So that Tuesday when she hit up until Friday when we left, they still didn't have communication. So we had to leave the resort on Friday and change our flights to Kingston because we flew into Montego Bay. The airport's totally underwater. Yeah. So by that 3 days of radio silence or spotty.
No communication at all? So what was going on? Like in your kids' mindset and your mom?
We got those. Steve gave us the 10 minutes, connection. So David,
Every time, now knowing the cadence of when Steve was going to be there in the morning, the evening, I just drafted up the things that I was going to text out. And I also knew who I was going to reach out to make sure that they post so other people can know our status. So
we were all getting those updates, and it was just such a powerful moment. I do want to have an opportunity for us to get into ways that people feel like they can contribute and kind of like what Jamaica needs now. But as we wrap kind of your experience, something that I've heard you guys tell so eloquently is like you're still very much in your head, like you're on the plane. And you're like, what's going to go wrong?
Yeah.
Like, talk about that part. So you get on a plane and you're getting ready to go home and be with your families, but your head's still not right.
Oh, no. It took a few days your nervous system is wired. You're in survival mode, fight or flight.
Whether you realize it or not, right? A lot of people probably were surprised by how much.
Right. So it's a whole retraining of the mind and body that everything's okay. So I have to retrain my body to say I'm not on high alert, at all moments, So I was like, are we really getting home? Or are we not getting home? When you sit down on a plane, you're still, reserved and everything's okay, right? Yeah. Are we back to normal life? Is this over? Yeah. But you're not. Like in that moment, you just have to accept that you're forever changed. Yeah. Like, you are going back a changed person. And so, you have to sit in that space of transformation and just understand everything that you experienced and how you move forward with that.
How did the two of you see each other different after that experience? I mean, you've been married a long time, and you went through this traumatic experience together. Yeah. What strength did you find from each other?
Let me tell you, because I was watching David when she was actually, present. And I looked to him because he was to my left, and that's when he was so dialed in and so faithful. And I thought about all of the people. We had such a strong network around us. People were praying for us. Our Legacy Christian Academy, my son goes there. They were praying for us. They were taking care of our kids at school. My mom and my stepdad being home, they were taking care of us. They were praying for us. Our whole network of friends and family stood up for us. And so when I looked to my left with David, he led in that charge and understanding of, how faithful he is and the people who surround us are to get us through that moment of, hey, this moment is powerful, but so are we. Yeah. So am I. And he was so rooted in that I will always know that I can look to him and know that that's who we are as a family.
That's beautiful.
And I'll echo, just when you think of leadership and stewardship, and not to set roles for male or female, but just as a male being that protector, that provider, but that leader in that space, we can weigh so much can be weighed on our shoulders. But it is a moment of vulnerability. Like, she's seen me cry before. She's seen me emotional. And through the storm, we've now been together for over 14 plus years. This had an anniversary, right?
Yesterday.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
But just understanding that together something great is within us versus when we want to give up.
Yeah.
When we now see something that is a flaw or whatever it is, because we look at something else and seems as if it's better. Like, no, we were brought together for a reason. And yeah, even through Hurricane Melissa, we've been through storms before Hurricane Melissa. And the fact that we were able to withstand that storm and have this testimony to share, I just think it speaks volumes.
It's unreal. As we end here, David, you do this so well, better than anybody I know in this community. And for the people that get to walk alongside both of you guys personally and professionally, talk to somebody who maybe feels isolated in a storm right now.
Yeah, I mean, you have so many people that are willing to hear your voice. You just have to use your voice. And a lot of times when we suffer in silence, it's because we feel like our story is not important enough. But everybody is the author of their book, and somebody wants to read your book. And when you share your story, the impact, the influence that you have on another person's life, you never know until you share your story. So I would say I strongly encourage just knowing, the current state when it comes to mental health and how people don't want to share things because they're afraid of how the backlash of X, Y, and Z. But the reality is you have a story for a reason, so share it.
That's so good.
Beautiful. Thank you.
We are so grateful that you guys were here. Happy anniversary to celebrate another year together, but also just to encourage and inspire so many people that just need faith and resilience, and just what you guys will be able to do through telling your story. You're going to impact a lot of people. So thank you guys.
Yeah, and it encourages me that you went through this horrible thing, and I can see it on your faces and your countenance. You're better people through the storm. So I praise God for that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really proud to know you guys as friends.
We love
So
you.
thank you for being on here and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. And last thing I just want to say is, like, Jamaica, I've known them, of course, through my battles in sport against USA versus Jamaica. And they've always put up a good fight. And so I love that about Jamaica. They're a resilient country. They're a very spiritual country. And so I leave with a piece of that as well. So just, Jamaica, just keep fighting and being who you are.
But let us win the next Olympics. Please.
You guys can chill. That would be great. All right. Perfect
We'll see you
place
guys
to leave
later.
it. We love you guys. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
What an incredible, the fact that they are so willing during the midst of something that is still so vulnerable and raw and real to come share that story with us. It blows my mind.
It was a very, as she so eloquently said, a very traumatic event. They're still processing the whole thing. But I think that is why this was so timely, because people are moving on in life. They're not even thinking about these kinds of things. And that's why we wanted to take this opportunity to reframe, not just hear a story, but then also kind of have a lot of times when we hear a story and we listen to something so profound like what we just heard with the Freemans, we go, well, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
I want to help. And I think for a lot of the folks in the audience who just heard that really compelling story, they want to know how they can help, and they want to know in the future how they can help. And the first thing that came to our minds was we wanted to introduce them to our favorite disaster relief charity, Convoy of Hope. Convoy of Hope is, as we'll hear in a moment from our guest right now, is absolutely the preeminent disaster relief organization. They lead with compassion, and that comes from their amazing founder, Hal Donaldson. Hal lost his parents in a car, or lost his dad in a car accident, and his mom was paralyzed. Or mom was incapacitated, and a family had to take them in. And Hal was so moved by this family taking in him and his brothers and sisters and having to stay in this trailer. They took them in and claimed them as their family, essentially, and loved on these kids. And that compassion that he was shown is what led him to found Convoy of Hope, and many years later. And so that's the spirit of this organization. We are so blessed to be joined by the VP of Public Engagement and the national spokesperson, Ethan Forhetz from Convoy of Hope. Welcome, Ethan.
Good to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
No, we're so happy to have you here. And to Kevin's point, Convoy of Hope has been just family to us for several years. And I think we would be remiss to say that Hal believed in the Hope Ignited podcast and prayed for this podcast and the impact that we were going to have long before we even thought it could be something. So thank you to Hal for believing in this show and just the lives that we could impact. But Ethan, I think so many people think, okay, the storm has passed. They're good. They'll be fine. Now it starts, let's rebuild. They're good. Can you talk about the importance of Convoy of Hope being the first on site and then just the sustainability of the relief efforts?
Well, it's hugely important to be there for the long term, and Convoy of Hope really makes it a priority to be there long after the TV cameras leave, long after the attention of the nation and the world leaves an area. Convoy of Hope is typically still working. And a good example of that is a disaster very similar to the one that we're seeing in Jamaica. It was Hurricane Dorian that hit the Bahamas in 2019. And following that devastating hurricane, Convoy of Hope was on the ground there helping in the relief efforts for 5 years following that. And if you think back to the Maui wildfires that hit in the summer of 2023, just within the last 8 weeks or so, Convoy of Hope wrapped up our response there. My guess is you haven't seen anything about the Maui wildfires on the news in more than a year. So Convoy does work long term because it's what's necessary, honestly. What happens in the immediate aftermath of a storm is it gets TV coverage, people are interested in it, and then that very quickly, and it was even more quickly than normal with the Jamaica storm, I'll be honest with you. I was shocked at how quickly it was no longer on the news. You weren't seeing any images from there. But I was there, and it's devastating for our team, and they've seen a lot. Many of them have said this is the worst disaster they've ever seen. And I don't know that those pictures are coming across people's phones and TV screens like they should to see the devastation that's taking place on that island. So Convoy's been working to get supplies to the people there in the short term, but we're also planning for the long term.
When you say that you were there, tell us a little bit about that experience and just you've been kind of in the media landscape for a long time. You've seen a lot of things firsthand. How was this different?
Well, I think the infrastructure is completely down on the west side of the island. There's no communication. Most people don't have shelter. Because it was 180 mile per hour winds. I mean, think about that. And they were sustained over a long period of time. So everything has been destroyed. A lot of concrete and cinder block homes there. Many of those have been knocked over. They're crumbling. But even if they're standing, the roofs are gone. And if it's a wooden structure, it's completely gone. So people when we were talking with them in the days immediately following the disaster, they needed whatever help that we could give. And we were supplying the things to sustain life, food and water and hygiene items and baby supplies, all the things that we take for granted we can just run to the store and get. They can no longer do that and won't be able to for several months. So it was interesting. Our first day of taking in distributions, we got truckloads of supply from the Kingston area, which was not badly damaged by the storm, thankfully, because it's a population center. We drove a truck in 80 miles into the disaster zone, dropped off the supplies, and then drove 80 miles back out. That took us literally 21 hours to do that. It was a 2-lane road into the disaster area, power lines down, trees down, water covering the road. So it was very, very slow going. But that's really what happens in the early days of a disaster. We have great plans when we go in, and hardly ever do those plans work as planned. But our team is really good at calling audibles, figuring out a way to make it happen.
Ethan, you're obviously having a lot of conversations. I know that's what you do. You're very interested in people. And were there any that stood out to you, any conversations you had with people who maybe had lost something or someone in the immediate aftermath?
Yeah, it was a really powerful day where we got to talk with several people, but a couple of women really stick out to me. One of them was sitting in her house. The roof was gone, so no real shelter. They were sleeping in cars overnight to take shelter from the outside. And we were talking with her about what she's going to do, that sort of thing. We put together a story that we put on convoyofhope.org and on Convoy socials. And either that day or the next day, we had somebody send us a private message saying, the woman in the story that you talked to is my aunt. That's my hometown in Jamaica. This woman is writing us from New York, where she's going to school. She said, I have had zero contact with any of my family back in my hometown. That's the first I've seen that they are alive and okay. So thank you for sharing that. And that really hit home for us in the communication world, because, social media takes its hits for being a rough place many times. But this is the good side of that, reaching out to a family member to see that their loved one is okay and struggling, but okay, alive. That's the key. And then there was another woman we got to talk to on that same day. She was telling us her harrowing story. Her roof ripped off. So during these 180-mile-an-hour winds, she is now running out of her house to a neighbor's house to try to find and take refuge there. And she just talked about her faith and the way that her faith really got her through it. There was a calm in the midst of the storm that she had. And even in talking with her, she didn't know where her next meal was going to come from. She didn't know how she was going to rebuild her house, but she had a peace about her. There was an ingrained confidence, I would call it, that she knew she was going to be okay. And we were the ones providing her daily bread that day.
Wow. That's so powerful. Ethan, there's a lot of people that are listening, that are watching, that say, I want to help. Like, I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know, what really allows me the means by which to have a hand in helping these people. How would you recommend that people get involved?
Well, I always ask, because I get this question a lot, and I appreciate the question, because people do want to help. They see the images, they want to do something, and they feel powerless many times, but you're not powerless. You can help. And there are 3 ways that Convoy asks to do as many of these 3 as you can. Maybe it's only 1. But we'd ask, number 1, that you pray for the people of Jamaica. They are really struggling. It's going to be a really long haul, especially now that the attention is not on the island. They're going to be struggling. So pray for the people there, that they would be able to get their lives back in order. And then pray for the Convoy team. We need help with logistics and favor and safety. It's still a dangerous place driving around there. So we would ask for that, number 1. Number 2, make a donation if you can. At Convoy of Hope, more than 91 cents of every dollar goes where the donor wants it to go. We work really hard at that because we know people work hard for their money. We want to be the best stewards that we can. And at Convoy, let's say a $50 donation that you make, we can turn that into $150 worth of supplies, and we can get them down to Jamaica to help the people there. So that's number 2, is donation. And then number 3, advocate. That's free. It's at everybody's fingertips. All of your viewers are on social media. Convoy of Hope is on social media. So we would ask that you look us up, follow us, and then we'll keep you updated as to what we're doing on a regular basis to help people there. And then beyond that, what we're doing on a regular basis every day around the world, where we feed more than 639,000 kids every school day. We empower women. We teach agriculture. So a lot of those stories are told on social media. So we'd ask that you like us, follow us there. And then if you see something that touches your heart, share it with somebody.
Oh, that's so
Let's
good.
say that I'm a doctor. I'm not. No one's ever accused me
You're
of that,
a doctor
actually,
of something. Doctor of Hope.
Yeah, but a Dr. Pepper even.
Yeah.
But let's say that I have this skill set and I have this burning passion to do something and help in a disaster. Maybe it's not Jamaica. Maybe it's Tornado Alley or something like that. Do you have a means for people who have certain skill sets to engage in volunteerism with Convoy of Hope? What would that even look like?
Well, really, honestly, volunteers allow Convoy to do what we do and maintain that. I was mentioning 91 cents of every dollar going where the donor wants it to go, because we have so many volunteers that do a lot of the work for us and with us, so we don't have to pay the staff to do it. But I would say, yeah, we have great disaster volunteers. These are people who they can carve out a week or 2 at times of disaster. It's a little more involved than, your average Tuesday or Thursday night show up at Convoy of Hope and help bag groceries. It's a little more involved, but we have great disaster volunteers that many times go on these trips with us. A lot of them are stateside, so they do the U.S. disasters, but they really help us. But it is a little more of a relationship, because we're spending money on the people. We want them to be a little bit more committed than just your average volunteer. But you can email disastervolunteer at convoyofhope.org to find out more all about that. But we have great volunteers that help us do what we do.
Ethan, as we wrap, we get so caught up sometimes in talking to the people that we know want to have a hands-on opportunity or a tangible expression of hope for these people in Jamaica. But just as we conclude today, what message would you have on behalf of Convoy of Hope for the people of Jamaica?
Well, I would say that it's worse than you think it is there. I don't know that the images that you see on your phone or on a TV screen, well, I know that they don't capture the whole story because those images it's one frame that you're seeing. But when you're there, you get to see the extent of it, the magnitude of it as it stretches from the very southern tip of the island all the way through to the north. It's all wiped out, and it's a lower income place to begin with. Agriculture is a big part of the west side of the island that was hit so hard. All of that's been wiped out. So it is worse than you think. And I don't think it's been portrayed well in the media since it happened. That's not a knock on the media. It's just the reality of what it is. It was difficult to get into those areas. Trust me, 21-hour drive. It was difficult to get into those areas to get the pictures out. So I think the window for that kind of closed, and people in this country, which is the most generous country in the world, have largely moved on. So I just want to thank the both of you for highlighting this, telling the story of what happened there and what is still happening and what needs to happen over the next several months as they begin to rebuild.
Yeah, Jamaica, we love you. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ethan, for this conversation. Looking forward to everyone sort of putting all the pieces together. Of course, the first part of our show was having this interview with a couple that were there while it was happening, and I think that you really brought this all home for people because, again, it kind of closes the loop when, as human beings, when we see something that is so devastating, our hearts want to reach out and figure out how we can help. And again, I can just vouch and say as one leader of a nonprofit that there is no other nonprofit that I personally donate more to, that I have more respect for the leadership and the integrity than Convoy of Hope. So thank you, Ethan, for your time today and for sharing this. And again, we encourage all of you, will you leave that, we'll put the lower third on there, but will you leave that again one more time, the link that they should go to follow out a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. It's convoyofhope.org. There you'll find out. You can keep updated on what we're doing, and you can make a donation there. And we appreciate it. Ashley and Kevin, it's been great to be with you.
Thank you so much, Ethan. And we will see you guys soon on Hope Ignited.